Commander Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars drift by through the main screen. The starship Harmony had been patrolling the outer rim for 3 months now, and nothing interesting had happened. Just empty space, dead planets, and the same boring reports to send back to Earth Command. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Ben Carter from the communications station. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel, and his face showed confusion. Jake turned to look at him. "What kind of strange, Ben?" "It's a signal, but not like anything I've seen before. It's coming from Sector 77 Alpha." Ben pressed more buttons and listened through his headset. "Commander, this doesn't sound like normal radio waves or data transmission. It sounds almost like music." Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, though they had never found any. "Music? That's impossible. There are no known civilizations in that sector." Jake stood up and walked over to Ben's station. "Let me hear it." Ben switched the signal to the main speakers. A strange sound filled the bridge. It was beautiful, but alien. The notes seemed to flow like water, rising and falling in patterns that almost made sense, but not quite. It was definitely music, but unlike anything any of them had ever heard. "How long has this been broadcasting?" Jake asked. "According to the sensors, about 6 hours. But sir, the strange thing is, the signal is getting stronger. Whatever is sending this is either moving toward us or increasing power." Dr. Park ran over to her station and started working. "I'm running analysis on the signal structure. Commander, this is incredible. The mathematical patterns in this music are far more complex than anything humans have created. The harmonics alone require understanding of physics we're just beginning to learn." Jake felt a chill run down his back. First contact with alien life was something every space captain dreamed about, but it was also the thing they feared most. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now it seemed they had their answer. "Red alert," Jake said calmly. The bridge lights changed to red, and warning sounds echoed through the ship. "All hands to battle stations. Ben, try to trace the exact source of that signal. Lisa, I want everything you can tell me about whoever is sending this." The crew moved quickly. Everyone knew what red alert meant. After years of space travel with no contact with other life forms, they had found something that was definitely not human. Amy Rodriguez, the ship's first officer, hurried onto the bridge. "What's the situation, Commander?" "We've intercepted what appears to be an alien transmission. Musical in nature, but far more advanced than anything we can create." Jake pointed to the main screen, which now showed a star map with a blinking red dot. "It's coming from that direction." Amy listened to the music still playing from the speakers. Her face showed the same wonder and fear that everyone else felt. "Orders, sir?" Jake thought carefully. This moment could change everything for humanity. They could try to run, but if these aliens were more advanced, running might not work. They could try to hide, but the aliens might already know they were here. Or they could do what humans had always done when meeting something new and unknown. They could try to communicate. "Set course for the signal source, but keep us at maximum sensor range. I want to know what we're dealing with before we get too close." Jake sat back down in his captain's chair. "Ben, start working on a response message. Something simple, basic mathematical concepts maybe." "Sir," Dr. Park called out from her station. "I'm reading the signal more clearly now. The complexity is beyond what I first thought. This isn't just music for entertainment. I think this might be how they communicate. The patterns suggest language, structure, but using musical notes instead of words." Ben worked at his station, trying to create a simple response. "Commander, I've put together a basic mathematical sequence using musical tones. Prime numbers, the value of pi, that sort of thing. Should I send it?" Jake thought about it. "Once they sent a signal back There would be no hiding from whoever was out there. But humanity had not come this far by being afraid of the unknown. "Send it," he said. Ben pressed the button, and their response signal went out into space. The bridge became quiet, except for the alien music still playing. Everyone waited. After 10 minutes, the alien music stopped. Complete silence came from the speakers. Then, slowly, a new pattern began. It was different from the first signal. Simpler, but somehow questioning. "They heard us," Amy said quietly. "They're responding." Dr. Park's station started beeping rapidly. "Commander, I'm detecting movement in the source sector. Something large is approaching our position." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "How large?" "Bigger than anything in our fleet, sir." "Much bigger." The main screen changed to show long-range sensors. A dot appeared at the edge of the screen, moving toward them. As they watched, the computer calculated its size and speed. Estimated length, 5 kilometers. Speed increasing toward us at 0.7 light speed, the computer announced. Jake knew that no human ship could move that fast or be that large. Whatever was coming toward them was far beyond human technology. "Distance to contact?" Jake asked. "At current speed, 6 hours, 12 minutes, Ben replied. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people trusted him to make the right choice. Earth Command was too far away to ask for orders. Whatever happened next, he had to decide. "All stations, prepare for possible first contact with alien life. Dr. Park, I want everything you can learn about that signal. Ben, keep trying to communicate. Amy, get me a full battle readiness report, but do not power weapons unless I give the order. We don't want to appear hostile." As the crew worked, Jake stared at the approaching dot on the screen. Humanity had always wondered what would happen when they met other intelligent life. Now they were about to find out. The music from the aliens continued playing, beautiful and strange, like nothing humans had ever imagined. In less than 6 hours, everything would change. 6 hours passed like 6 years. The alien ship arrived exactly when the computer predicted. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harmony, watching the massive vessel appear on their main screen. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The alien ship looked like it was made of crystal and light. It had no sharp edges or straight lines. Instead, it curved and flowed like a piece of music turned into metal and glass. Strange lights moved across its surface in patterns that seemed to match the musical signals they had been receiving. "My God," whispered Amy Rodriguez. "It's incredible." The alien ship was 10 times larger than the Harmony. It could have destroyed them easily, but it just hung in space, waiting. The musical communication continued, but now it seemed more complex, more urgent. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her station with excitement in her eyes. "Commander, I think I'm beginning to understand their communication system. The music isn't just pretty sounds. Each note, each harmony, each rhythm means something specific. It's like they turned mathematics into music and music into language." "Can you translate any of it?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, but it's incredibly complex. What I can tell is that they seem to be asking questions. Saying musical phrases keep repeating, but with small changes each time. I think they're trying to learn about us." Ben Carter turned from his communication station. "Sir, they're sending a new type of signal. It looks like coordinates." Jake studied the numbers on Ben's screen. "Those coordinates are for the 3rd planet in this system. They want us to meet them there." Amy frowned. "Could be a trap, sir. Could be," Jake agreed. "But if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. Set course for those coordinates, but stay ready for anything." The Harmony moved toward the planet, followed by the huge alien ship. The planet was mostly water, with several large continents. It had breathable air and seemed peaceful. As they got closer, the alien ship sent another musical message. They want us to land on the surface, Dr. Park translated. I think they want to meet face to face. Jake made his decision. Prepare the shuttle. Amy, you're with me. Ben, Lisa, you too. We're going down there. Sir, I should lead the away team. Amy said. If something goes wrong, the ship needs its captain. Jake shook his head. This is too important. Humanity's first contact with alien life. I need to be there. 30 minutes later, their shuttle landed on a wide plain near a crystal-clear lake. The alien ship landed nearby, but it made no sound at all. It simply settled onto the ground like a feather floating down. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, part of the alien ship became transparent, and figures began walking out. Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The aliens were like nothing humans had ever imagined. They looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies were tall and thin, about 8 feet high, and they seemed to glow with soft inner light. When they moved, they made gentle musical sounds, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. One of the aliens stepped forward. When it moved, the sound it made was different from the others, more complex and beautiful. Jake guessed this was their leader. That must be their captain or commander. Amy whispered. Dr. Park held up her tablet, trying to record and analyze every sound the aliens made. They're definitely communicating with each other through music, but it's far more sophisticated than I thought possible. The alien leader made a series of musical notes that rose and fell like a question. Ben stepped forward with a small device. That could produce musical tones. I'm going to try the mathematical sequence again, Ben said. He played a simple melody that represented basic numbers and mathematical concepts. The aliens listened. Then the leader made sounds that seemed disappointed. It was like listening to a sad song. The other aliens gathered around their leader, making harmonies that sounded worried or confused. I don't think they're impressed, Amy said quietly. Dr. Park studied her tablet. Wait, I'm getting something. The patterns in their music are showing what they think of our signal. Commander, I think they believe we're not very intelligent. The mathematical concepts we sent were too simple for them. The alien leader stepped closer and began making more complex musical sounds. The melody was beautiful, but also seemed frustrated, like a teacher trying to explain something to a slow student. They're trying to teach us something, Dr. Park said, listening carefully. It's like they're showing us how to make proper music, but I can't understand the lesson. Jake felt a growing concern. These aliens were clearly far more advanced than humans. Their ship, their technology, even their way of communicating was beyond anything Earth had achieved. If they decided humans were too primitive, what would happen? The alien leader made more sounds, and this time they sounded almost angry. The other aliens joined in, creating a harmony that made the human team feel uncomfortable and unwelcome. I think we have a problem, Ben said. They don't seem happy with us. Double quotes. Dr. Park worked frantically with her tablet. I'm picking up repeated patterns in their music. I think they're debating something. Some of the tones sound questioning, others sound negative. The aliens continued their musical conversation for several minutes. The humans could only stand and listen, understanding nothing, but feeling the emotions in the music. There was disappointment, frustration, and something that sounded like pity. Finally, the alien leader turned toward the humans and made a long, complex musical statement. The melody was serious and formal, like an official announcement. I wish I could understand what they're saying, Jake said. Dr. Park's eyes went wide as she studied her tablet. Commander, I think I'm getting parts of it. Based on the patterns and repetitions, I believe they just told us something very important, and I don't think it's good news. The alien leader made one final musical phrase, then turned and walked back toward their ship. The other aliens followed. Within minutes, they were gone, and their ship rose silently into the sky. What just happened? Amy asked. Dr. Park looked pale. I think we just failed some kind of test. The patterns in their final message suggested evaluation, judgment, and some kind of deadline or time limit. Jake watched the alien ship disappear. Into space. A test? What kind of test? I'm not sure, but I think they were testing our intelligence through music. And based on their reaction, I think they found us lacking. Ben stared at the sky where the alien ship had vanished. What happens if we failed their test? Dr. Park didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and worried. I don't know. But based on what I heard in their music, I don't think we want to find out. The human team returned to their shuttle in silence, each lost in thought about what had just happened and what it might mean for humanity's future among the stars. 3 days passed after the meeting on the planet. The crew of the Harmony waited in space, not knowing what to expect. Jake Morrison had sent reports back to Earth Command, but it would take weeks to get a response. They were on their own. Commander, we're receiving another transmission, Ben Carter announced from his station. His voice was tense. It's the same aliens, but the signal is much stronger now. Jake sat up in his captain's chair, put it on speakers. The bridge filled with alien music, but this time it was different. The sounds were formal and serious, like an important announcement. Dr. Lisa Park worked quickly at her station, trying to understand the message. I'm getting some of it, she said after several minutes. The patterns are clearer now. I think they're giving us some kind of official communication. Amy Rodriguez moved closer to Lisa's station. What are they saying? It's complex, but I think they're explaining something about themselves. They keep using musical patterns that suggest authority, judgment, and evaluation. Lisa looked worried. Commander, I think they're telling us about their purpose in the galaxy. The alien music continued for 20 minutes. Sometimes it sounded proud, sometimes disappointed, and sometimes threatening. When it finally ended, the bridge was quiet except for the normal sounds of the ship. What did you get from that? Jake asked. Lisa looked at her notes. Based on the patterns, I believe they just told us who they are and what they do. They seem to be some kind of galactic authority. They travel from world to world, testing other species. Testing them for what? Amy asked. Intelligence, I think. But not the kind of intelligence we understand. They seem to judge other species based on their musical ability and understanding of harmony. Ben turned from his station. That explains why they were so disappointed with our mathematical sequences. To them, we probably sounded like children playing with toys. Jake felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. What happens to species that fail their test? Before Lisa could answer, another transmission came through. This one was shorter, but felt more urgent. The alien music was sharp and demanding, like a teacher calling a student to attention. They're sending coordinates again, Ben said. Same planet as before. They want another meeting, Jake realized. Amy, prepare the shuttle. Same team as before. An hour later, they were back on the planet's surface. The alien ship was already there, waiting. This time, more aliens came out to meet them. Jake counted at least 20 of the crystal beings, all making soft musical sounds as they moved. The alien leader stepped forward and began making music that was clearly meant to be understood. The sounds were slower and more repeated than before, like someone speaking very carefully to a child. Dr. Park listened with her tablet, working to translate. I think they're trying to explain something important. The patterns suggest a choice or decision that needs to be made. The alien leader made a long musical statement, then waited. When the humans didn't respond, it repeated the same pattern, but louder and more insistent. They want an answer to something, Lisa said, but I don't know what the question is. Jake stepped forward. We don't understand your language, he said slowly. We want to learn, but we need help. The alien leader made sounds that seemed frustrated. It turned to the other aliens, and they began a musical conversation. The harmony was complex and seemed to involve disagreement. Some of the musical voices sounded patient, others sounded impatient or angry. After several minutes, the alien leader turned back to the humans. This time, it began making very simple musical patterns, like a parent teaching a small child. The sounds were basic, but clear. Dr. Park worked frantically with her tablet. I think I'm getting this. The simple patterns are easier to understand. They're trying to teach us their language. The alien leader repeated the lesson several times, then made a questioning sound. It was clearly asking if the humans understood. Ben stepped forward with his musical device. He tried to copy the simple patterns the alien had made. His attempt was rough and imperfect, but the alien leader made sounds that seemed encouraging. Good, Lisa said, watching her tablet. The patterns suggest approval. They like that we're trying to learn. The alien leader began a longer lesson, showing more complex musical patterns. Each time, it would repeat the pattern and wait for the humans to try to copy it. Ben did his best, but human technology could not make the subtle harmonies and complex tones that came naturally to the aliens. After an hour of lessons, the alien leader made a very serious musical statement. The other aliens joined in, creating a harmony that felt important and final. This is big, Lisa said, studying the patterns. They're making some kind of official announcement. I think they're explaining what will happen next. The alien leader made a sequence of sounds that clearly indicated the humans, then made sounds that suggested evaluation and judgment. Then it made a pattern that felt like a question or challenge. They're challenging us to something, Lisa translated. A test of some kind. The alien leader continued its musical explanation. The sounds suggested time limits, requirements, and consequences. When it finished, all the aliens made a harmony that sounded final and unchangeable. What did they say? Jake asked. Lisa looked pale. Based on the patterns, I think they just gave us an ultimatum. They're challenging humanity to some kind of musical test. If we pass, something good happens. If we fail, she paused, looking at her notes. If we fail, I think they plan to isolate us from the rest of the galaxy. Isolate us how? Amy asked. I'm not entirely sure, but the patterns suggest they have. The power to prevent us from traveling beyond our own solar system. They might put some kind of barrier around Earth. The alien leader made one more musical statement, then pointed to the sky. The meaning was clear, even without translation. They were giving humanity time to prepare for this test. How much time do we have? Jake asked. Lisa studied the musical patterns on her tablet. The repetition suggests a specific time period. Based on the mathematical relationships in their music, I think we have 30 Earth days. The aliens began walking back to their ship. Before leaving, the leader turned and made a final musical phrase. It sounded almost sad, like someone saying goodbye to a friend they might never see again. What was that last part? Ben asked. Lisa's voice was quiet. I think it was either good luck or farewell forever. I'm not sure which. The alien ship rose into the sky and disappeared, leaving the humans alone on the empty planet. The silence felt heavy and threatening. 30 days to learn their musical language, well enough to pass a test that determines humanity's future in the galaxy, Amy said. No pressure at all. Jake looked up at the sky where the alien ship had vanished. We need to get back to Earth immediately. This is bigger than just our ship now. All of humanity needs to know what's happening. On the shuttle ride back to the Harmony, Dr. Park continued studying the alien musical patterns. Commander, I've been thinking about what they said. This isn't the first time they've done this. The way they conducted themselves, the formal nature of their communication, this is a process they've used before. What do you mean? Jake asked. I think they travel the galaxy testing species with their musical challenges. We're just the latest civilization they've encountered. Lisa paused, looking worried. Which makes me wonder, what happened to the species that failed their test? Ben was working with his equipment, trying to reproduce some of the alien sounds they had heard. The technology gap between us and them is enormous. If they decided we were a threat or just too primitive, they could probably destroy human civilization without much effort. Or worse, Amy added, they could trap us on Earth forever, never letting us explore the stars or meet other species. Jake thought about the billions of people on Earth who had no idea their future was being decided by aliens who judged intelligence through music. How many species do you think have faced this test? Based on the complexity of their musical language and the formal way they conducted the test, probably dozens, maybe hundreds, Lisa answered. They've had a lot of practice at this. And how many do you think have passed? Jake asked. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. But the way they looked at us, the disappointment in their music when we tried to communicate, I don't think they expect us to succeed. The shuttle docked with the Harmony, and Jake immediately ordered a course back to Earth at maximum speed. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, he sat in his cabin writing his report to Earth Command. How do you tell your entire species that their future depends on passing a musical test given by crystal aliens? How do you explain that humanity has 30 days to prove they deserve to join the galactic community? Jake finished his report and sent it toward Earth. Then he sat back and thought about the challenge ahead. Somewhere in human music and culture, there had to be something that would impress the aliens. Something that would prove humanity deserved to explore the stars. But what? And would 30 days be enough time to find it? The day of the great test had arrived. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harmony, looking at the massive alien fleet that had gathered in space above Earth. 12 crystal ships hung in the darkness, each one larger than any human vessel. They had come to witness humanity's final chance. Dr. Helen Brooks finished setting up the last piece of equipment in the ship's main cargo bay. For weeks, she had worked with the best musicians on Earth to prepare for this moment. The cargo bay had been converted into a concert hall filled with instruments from every culture on the planet. The Zephyrian ships are requesting permission to send observers, Ben Carter reported from his communication station. They want to witness the performance directly. Grant permission, Jake said. This is it. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next hour. Amy Rodriguez checked her tablet one more time. All the musicians are ready. We have representatives from every major musical tradition on Earth. The Vienna Philharmonic, the Tokyo String, quartet, traditional African drummers, Native American flute players, and over 50 others. But the most important person in the room was not a famous musician. She was a young street performer from California named Karolina Protsenko. For the past month, she had been the center of humanity's desperate plan. It had been Ryan Adams who discovered her importance. While studying the Zephyrian transmissions, he found something amazing. The aliens had been listening to Earth's radio broadcasts for years. Most human music they considered noise, but one performance had caught their attention. A video of Karolina playing Carol of the Bells on her violin in the streets had somehow reached their ships. It was the only human music they found interesting, Ryan had explained to the team. Something about her performance made them pause and listen. If anything can save us, it's that song played the way she plays it. Now Karolina stood in the cargo bay, holding her violin. She was nervous, but determined. The weight of her entire species rested on her shoulders, but she had spent weeks preparing with Helen and the other musicians. Remember, Helen said too, her quietly, play it like you always have. Don't think about the aliens or the test. Just play the music you love. The Zephyrian observers materialized in the cargo bay, through some kind of transport technology. There were 5 of them there, crystal bodies glowing softly in the dim light. They moved to one side of the room and stood perfectly still, waiting. Jake activated the ship's communication system. "This is Commander Morrison of the Earth ship Harmony. We are ready to begin our performance." A musical response came from the Zephyrian fleet. The sounds were formal and serious, like a judge calling court to order. Dr. Park, who had spent weeks learning their language, translated quietly over the intercom. "They acknowledge our readiness. The test begins now. They will judge our performance based on mathematical precision, emotional depth, and cultural significance. We have one chance to prove humanity's worth." Helen stood at the front of the assembled musicians. She had spent her entire career studying music, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. In her hands, she held the arrangement she had created, a version of Carol of the Bells that combined Karolina's street performance with the combined power of Earth's greatest musical traditions. "This is for all of humanity," Helen said to the musicians. "Play like your lives depend on it, because they do." She raised her conductor's baton, and the performance began. The piece started simply, with Karolina's violin playing the familiar melody of Carol of the Bells. The notes were pure and clear, just as they had been in her street performances. But slowly, other instruments joined in. A Chinese erhu added harmony. The Native American flutes provided counterpoint. African drums gave rhythm while European strings added depth. The Zephyrian observers remained motionless, but their internal light seemed to pulse in time with the music. Helen watched them carefully as she conducted, trying to read their reaction. As the performance continued, more and more musical traditions joined the piece. Indian sitars, Middle Eastern ouds, South American panpipes, and dozens of other instruments added their voices to the growing symphony. Each culture brought its own interpretation of the basic melody, creating layers of sound that built upon each other. Helen had designed the arrangement to show the Zephyrians something they had never experienced: the beauty of controlled chaos. Human music was not mathematically perfect like theirs, but it was complex in ways they could not imagine. It contained the struggles and joys of billions of people across thousands of years. The performance reached its climax as all the instruments played together. The sound filled the cargo bay and echoed through the ship. It was Carol of the Bells, but also something completely new, a celebration of human diversity and creativity that had never been heard before. But at the center of it all was Karolina's violin. Her melody remained clear and pure, leading the entire ensemble like a bright star guiding ships through the darkness. She played with the same passion she had shown on the streets, but now that passion carried the hopes of her entire species. As the music swirled around the cargo bay, Helen noticed something amazing. The Zephyrian observers were beginning to glow brighter. Their crystal bodies were resonating with the human music, creating harmonies that blended perfectly with the performance. Without realizing it, the aliens had become part of the music. Peace began to wind down, but Helen was not finished. She had saved the most important part for last. As the other instruments faded away, only Karolina's violin remained, playing the simple melody that had started it all. But now that melody carried new weight and meaning. It was no longer just a Christmas song played by a street musician. It had become humanity's anthem, their plea for acceptance among the stars. The final note hung in the air for a long moment and slowly faded to silence. The cargo bay was completely quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. The Zephyrian observers stood motionless, their bodies still glowing from the music they had just experienced. Helen lowered her baton and waited. On the bridge, Jake held his breath. Throughout the ship, the crew listened for any sign of the aliens' response. The silence stretched on, becoming more unbearable with each passing second. Finally, one of the Zephyrian observers stepped forward. It began to make musical sounds, but these were different from anything the humans had heard before. The notes were softer, more complex, and filled with emotions that seemed almost human. Dr. Park's voice came over the intercom, filled with wonder. "Commander, I think they're trying to communicate something new. The patterns are unlike anything in their previous transmissions. They sound ... impressed." The Zephyrian observer continued its musical statement, joined by the others. Their combined harmony filled the cargo bay with sounds of beauty and approval. Even without translation, everyone could hear the change in their attitude. "I think we did it," Helen whispered to Karolina. "I think we actually did it, but the real test was still to come." The observers were just representatives. The final judgment would come from the fleet commanders, and their decision would determine whether humanity would join the galactic community or be forever trapped in their own solar system. The silence after the performance felt like it lasted forever. Jake Morrison watched the Zephyrian observers in the cargo bay through the security cameras. Their crystal bodies were still glowing brighter than before, pulsing with soft light that seemed to match the rhythm of the music they had just heard. "Commander," Ben Carter called from his station, "the main Zephyrian fleet is moving. All 12 ships are forming some kind of pattern around us." Jake felt his heart racing. "What kind of pattern?" "It looks ceremonial, sir. Like they're preparing for something important." Dr. Helen Brooks stood with the musicians in the cargo bay, waiting for any sign of the aliens' decision. Karolina Protsenko held her violin close to her chest, exhausted from the performance, but alert for whatever came next. The other musicians from around the world stood quietly, knowing they had given everything they had. Suddenly, the Zephyrian observers in the cargo bay began making music together. But this was completely different from any sounds they had made before. The harmony was complex and beautiful, but it also contained something that sounded almost human. The mathematical precision was still there, but now it was mixed with emotion and feeling. "Dr. Park," Jake called over the intercom. "What are they saying?" Lisa Park worked frantically at her station, analyzing the new musical patterns. "Commander, this is incredible. They're not using their normal formal communication style. This sounds more like they're having a conversation with us, rather than making a judgment about us." The music from the observers grew more complex, and soon it was joined by sounds from the Zephyrian fleet outside. All 12 ships began making harmonies that blended together into something magnificent. The combined music filled space around Earth with sounds that had never been heard before. "The entire fleet is singing," Amy Rodriguez said in wonder. "All of them together." On Earth below, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Alien music was being broadcast on every radio and television station. In cities around the world, crowds gathered in streets and parks, looking up at the sky and listening to the impossible beauty of the Zephyrian song. The music continued for several minutes, building and changing like a symphony written by an entire civilization. When it finally ended, one of the observers in the cargo bay stepped forward and began making sounds that were clearly directed at the human musicians. Dr. Park translated as best she could. "I think they're trying to explain something to us. The pattern suggests surprise, discovery, and ... admiration. A sound amazed by something." The lead observer continued its musical explanation, gesturing toward Karolina and her violin. The sounds it made were questioning, but also respectful, like a student asking a teacher to explain a difficult concept. Helen stepped forward. "I think they want to understand how we created that music, how we combined so many different styles into one piece." Ben had brought his musical communication device to the cargo bay. He tried to respond to the alien's question using simple musical patterns that Dr. Park had taught him over the past weeks. The alien listened, then made sounds that seemed encouraging. It began a kind of musical lesson, but this time the alien was the student, and Ben was the teacher. The alien tried to copy the human musical patterns, but its attempts sounded too perfect, too mathematically precise. They can't do it, Helen realized. They can make perfect harmonies and mathematical sequences, but they can't create the kind of complex, imperfect beauty that human music has. More aliens transported into the cargo bay. Soon there were dozens of them, all listening and trying to understand the human approach to music. They seemed fascinated by the idea that imperfection could be more beautiful than mathematical precision. One of the newcomers was clearly more important than the others. It was larger and glowed brighter, and when it made sounds, all the other. Aliens listened respectfully. Dr. Park identified it as a leader or commander from the fleet. The leader began making a long musical statement. The sounds were formal, but also filled with something that seemed like respect and apology. As it spoke, the other aliens joined in, creating harmonies that supported and emphasized the leader's words. "Commander," Dr. Park's voice came over the intercom, filled with excitement. "I think I'm understanding this. The leader is making some kind of official statement about humanity and our music." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of statement?" "They're acknowledging that they made a mistake about us. The patterns suggest that they thought our music was primitive and chaotic, but now they understand it's actually more sophisticated than theirs in some ways." The alien leader continued its musical speech, and Dr. Park worked to translate the complex patterns. "They're saying that we've shown them something they never knew was possible. We've taught them that chaos and imperfection can create beauty that pure mathematics cannot achieve." Helen felt tears in her eyes as she listened to the alien music. After weeks of fear and preparation, it seemed like humanity had not only passed the test, but had actually taught their judges something new. The leader made a final musical statement. Then all the aliens in the cargo bay began making sounds together. The harmony was incredible, but now it included deliberate imperfections and variations that made it sound more human-like. "They're trying to copy our style," Karolina whispered in amazement. "They're learning from us." Dr. Park's translation confirmed it. The leader just made an official declaration. Humanity is not only accepted into the galactic community, but we're being invited to teach other species about our approach to music and art. Jake felt relief wash over him like a wave. It's over. We passed. But Dr. Park wasn't finished translating. "Commander, there's more. They're explaining why this test was so important. They've encountered hundreds of species over thousands of years, and most of them were rejected because their music lacked creativity or emotion. Only a few species have ever passed this test." "How many?" Jake asked. "Based on the numerical patterns in their music, I think only 7 or 8 species in the entire galaxy have been accepted as full members of their civilization, and none of them impressed the Zephyrians the way we just did." The alien leader made one final announcement, and this time even the humans could hear the joy and excitement in its musical voice. Dr. Park's translation made everyone smile. "They want to learn more about human music. They're asking if we would be willing to teach them about different musical styles from Earth. They want to understand jazz, rock music, folk songs, everything we have." Helen laughed through her tears. "A few weeks ago, they thought we were too primitive to communicate with. Now they want us to be their music teachers." The aliens began transporting back to their ships, but the leader remained for a moment longer. It approached Karolina and made soft, grateful sounds while gesturing toward her violin. "I think it's thanking you," Helen told the young musician. "Your street performance saved our entire species." Karolina looked down at her violin, the same instrument she had played on street corners to earn money for her family. Now it had earned humanity a place among the stars. As the last alien transported away, the cargo bay fell quiet. The musicians began packing their instruments, but the mood was celebratory. They had done something no other humans in history had ever done. They had proven that humanity deserved to explore the galaxy. Jake sat in his captain's chair, watching the Zephyrian fleet begin to move away from Earth. But this wasn't goodbye. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. Soon, human musicians would travel to alien worlds, sharing Earth's music with civilizations beyond imagination. And it had all started with a young girl playing violin on a street corner, creating something beautiful in the chaos of everyday life. That simple act of human creativity had opened the door to the stars.